So, in this season, we are making videos to discuss the topic love affairs. Everything concerning dating, long term, short term, whatever you understand by the expression dating, okay? And I've mentioned a couple videos ago that I don't like much the expressions that I see in the YouTube channels, talking about people and classifying them as if they were objects and so on. And one of the expressions that I do not like is the term red flag, that a lot of people use to say that someone has characteristics that classify them as an avoidant potential partner. And from what I've watched before preparing this season, I've seen a lot of things that, at least my experience and the experience that from a lot of people that I know, they contradict what these people are saying. But not only that, I've noticed while watching videos that there is an attempt by so many people with so many followers to create patterns, to transform people into mere numbers and statistics, and to try to somehow make them look all alike, as if everyone was exactly the same and every single behavior could be expected by certain types of people when they have certain characteristics. And I would like to discuss some of these things with you because, of course, I disagree with them. That's not what I see. That's not what I live. That's not what some people that I know see and live. So I would like to start talking about some of these so-called red flags and tell you why I think there is a lot of problem in using them and thinking that them can qualify people or classify them to be with you or not. Let's start with some examples. No, I see very often people talking about red flags and saying things like you should pay attention to the person's behavior to people that are unimportant to them. You should pay attention to the person using the phone or not, this or that. And I would like to analyze some of these with you to show you that life is not so black and white as it seems. And there are so many more layers and shades between black and white that sometimes we despise, we do not pay attention to, or deliberately we do not want to pay attention to, because it's so much easier to classify people lowering down the level and just assuming that everyone is the same. I'll give you an example. People say that if the person treats well the waiter or someone who is not important to them, this is a good sign. And if they don't, that's a red flag. I can tell you something. I've seen people that, not one, not two, not three, many. I've seen people that are adorable to the waiter. They are sweet to the Uber driver. They treat nicely every shop attendant. And they are just devil to date. They scare the devil to date. They are just impossible to date, men and women. And I can tell you from personal experience, but also from experience of other people, that this is not going to qualify someone. The way you relate to a salesperson, a waiter, to your friends, to your mom, and so on, does not necessarily mean that this is the way you are going to relate to other people. It can be. It can happen. But I've met people that were just the most adorable friends. Mom and dad would say, this is the child of my dreams, such an easy child. You would go to a restaurant, the person would treat the waiter amazingly. But the previous two boyfriends couldn't even see her. And after I broke up with her, I was like, I don't want to see this person, not even showered in gold, not even painted as, I don't know, a Picasso painting. I don't want. Because when people date, they are another persona, so to say. No, we have different roles to fulfill in society: work, friendship, family, and so on. One of them is dating. One of them is when we are in a relationship with someone else. And this is different from other relationships that we establish in society with family, friends, work, and so on, as I mentioned. And when we date, some of us, we have another behavior compared to the previous ones. And among those previous ones, they are also different. The person who you are, or whoever you are thinking about is as a friend, is not the same person that this person is as a colleague at work, and so on. And same thing happens with dating. There are people that they will be just great as friends, but they are just impossible to date. There are people that will be the best possible example of a child. They will behave good with parents, treat them well, do things well at school, and so on. But they are not made to date. When they start dating, I don't know, they become extremely jealous, conflictive, possessive, and so on. And it's very difficult to date them. Life becomes hell. And I want you to consider this. Another red flag that people mention all the time is if you meet someone who has lots of tattoos, because that shows that the person doesn't think long term, that that person is not able to control emotions, and so on, for both men and women. And what I can tell you is, I've met people that had tattoos, of course, I mean, one or two, or a discrete tattoo, and so on. And they were very good co-workers, they were responsible people, they were punctual people, they wouldn't do anything mean to colleagues at work, and they had a stable relationship with their partner for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more years, and everything was doing well. And I think it's very detrimental to your perception of the world to just qualify people because of one tattoo or because of one characteristic. You see, maybe you can find some people that have a tattoo and have certain behaviors that you do not approve, that you wouldn't like for yourself in terms of dating. But there are others, not one, not two, many as well, that have tattoos and they have absolutely no problem in terms of dating. They are absolutely dateable people, and you can have a very good and healthy relationship with them. And maybe that semi-virgin without tattoos going to the church on the weekends just to please the family, just to appear good, just to play a social role that makes people think, oh, this is a great person, this is a person with whom you can marry, and so on. When you enter in a relationship, that person shows the real face. That person shows its claws, his or her claws. So I think the best way is either to get to know the person in advance, or to ask people who might know the person what they think, and so on. And if it's someone you absolutely don't know, you've just been somewhere and you met the person, to take care, to go slowly, to pay attention, to see how things go, to see how things develop with this person, and see how this person behaves. And yes, I know sometimes people will hide and they will play the saint and the nice and the sweet one, and so on, until things become more solid, and then they show their real face. But that's something that it's difficult to avoid unless you have a very good and skilled perception, but really, really sharp, and you never make a mistake when you analyze that. It's very difficult to know in advance. And I can tell you that I've seen people judging very early in advance, and they were wrong. But I also have seen people judging a lot in advance very early, and they were right. So it's very difficult to establish formulas and patterns to such complex creatures as human beings. You might find certain characteristics that are typical when you see this or that so-called red flag, but I would be extremely careful in totally generalizing and assuming that everyone is like that. And I tell you why. This sounds for me almost like someone who says, oh, he's a Scorpio, it's not gonna work, I'm not gonna date him. Or, oh, she's a Leo, oh no, her ego is too big, it's not gonna work, I'm not gonna date her. It's kind of a bit mystical and esoterical in a way that is not so solid and consistent and coherent. So if I were you, I would pay careful attention when just taking these so-called red flags and assuming that they are like, I don't know, something that defines someone. And we could discuss many others, you know, the person who doesn't pay for the first dating, or the person who doesn't want to split the bill. Who knows what's happening with the person, you know? I remember when I met one of my exes, I didn't know whether she was poor or not. And I remember that on our first dating, she couldn't afford, or she never offered to pay for the meal, and she was ordering very cheap stuff at the restaurant at our first date. And later on in the relationship, when she was splitting bills with me or helping and so on, she said in a very funny way and in a very shy way, she said, on our first date, I didn't have money. I was jobless at the time and I didn't know what to do. So I thought maybe he's going to pay for me. So I'm going to choose something very cheap to not sound like I'm exploiting him. And there you go. I paid for the first date, and we had a long-term relationship, and everything worked out well. And she split many bills afterwards, and she invited me to things later, and she did things for me. She bought me presents. She was always very attentive and caring and so on, you know. But on the first date, had I judged by this idea of, oh, she didn't pay, she's just letting me pay, she's not even being polite to offer and so on, this is a red flag, I would have cut it off right there, and I would have missed a very nice relationship, which indeed it was. And I think you should pay attention to these things as well. Consider them, have them on the back of your head, but don't dismiss immediately people like that, because people are way more complex than what you think. Consider this, and be a bit cooler, and a bit less intempestive when you meet people. See you next time.